Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals publish to inform their consumers, to grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. We're doing a series of spotlights on remarkable experts, remarkable attorneys with a focus on elder law and estate planning from across the country and even in your town. Joining me on this segment is Jeannie Urbani from Urbani Law, based out of Galveston and Houston, Texas. Jeannie, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I know elder law and estate planning is a broad topic. Please just give us a brief overview on your areas of focus in that spectrum and the types of folks that you focus on helping.
So it's a broad topic, but it's something I think everybody needs to think about and consider. A lot of times we don't think about what elder law until it's too late. We go get our wills done, but we don't ask for a power of attorney. Powers of attorneys are critical. Medical power of attorneys help, but financial power of attorneys are huge too. And so I kind of help people do their overall planning for, end of life. I also kind of look at their businesses with it, and you have to look at everything, overall assets, overall packages. Other thing I do is a lot of Medicaid applications for nursing homes. A lot of people at their end of life go on to Medicaid and go into a nursing home. The government provides for them to stay in nursing homes, but there's certain requirements you have to meet. And so I make sure all those things are in place so we can get them on Medicaid so they have a safe place to go if they have dementia. And a lot of people, you'll be surprised now, have no family, or their children kind of dump them and then they start taking their money. So there's a lot to consider when it comes to elder law. You really need to have your protections in place just in case.
Do you find that a big misconception is people think that if they have a will, that's all they need and they feel like they're prepared? Is that something common, or is that kind of old school thinking?
No, that's very common. And still have a bunch of lawyers who will only, when somebody asks for a will, they'll only still give them a will. Part of my practice is I always give them the associated documents, which is a living will, which is a power of attorney, financial power of attorney, a medical power of attorney. And I also do HIPAA releases for them, because now with the HIPAA laws, you would be surprised if you end up, and it's not even for elder. If you get in a car accident, you're in a hospital, in Texas, you live in Chicago, and nobody knows if that's your wife or your daughter, and they won't give them any information. So it's real good to have a HIPAA release already in place that, your family member, your friend, whoever you're traveling with can hand them that HIPAA release if something were to happen to you, simple as a car wreck. And I think, that's the issue with all of it. If something happens to you, you need a power of attorney. It's fine to have a medical power of attorney, but what happens if we have to put you in a nursing home and we have to get you on Medicaid benefits? To do all that, you have to have access to your bank accounts, your income statements, your pension funds, your annuities. You have to know everything in order to apply for certain benefits that elders are allowed to have. But a lot of times what happens is people become incapacitated, and that's when they need the help the most. And these other documents are not in place to help them through that process. But it's very important. The will is such a minutia part of it. Years ago, it was a much larger part because of our taxes and our state planning taxes. Right now, I don't know what's going to happen in the government today. It's important, but you got to have a lot of money to really start being taxed, at least federally, for that really to kick in. So it's not nearly as important for the day-to-day person. Really is things like your medical power of attorney and your power of attorney. And then the other thing is a living will. And a good example of the living will is the Terry Schiavo case. I don't know if we all remember that back in Florida years ago, where she was incapacitated and, basically just living on a feeding tube for years and years and years. And the parents were like, well, this is what she wants. And the husband, or might have been reversed, was like, no, this isn't what she wants. But because she didn't have a living will, nobody could make the decision to say, hey, I don't want to live incapacitated with just a feeding tube for the rest of my life. Go ahead and let's stop treatment. And she couldn't really speak for herself. So it's it is, I think, the most critical part of estate planning is to really get in with someone who understands everything, can counsel you, tax repercussions, end of life planning, what you want at your end of life, A lot of children think they know what their parents want. And I think it's important that parents, they have it written down what they want, not what their children want. Because I hate to say it, but greed is there. And a lot of times money prevails, even for the best people.
I think the will is often a big misconception because people feel like they wrote down what it is they want, who gets what. But I understand that without the power of attorney, and if it still guarantees that you go into probate, and then that's where people get confused. Like,
Right.
why, if I told you, if I wrote down where I wanted everything to go, why does it have to go to a judge to decide?
Well, and I think well, oh, that, yeah, it does still have to go to a judge to decide. But if you have a will and you haven't, and at least, and it's different from state to state. A lot of them are very similar. Our exceptions make Florida more like us, and Florida's exceptions make, because Florida is a separate property. For example, Texas is a community property, but Florida's separate property exceptions make them almost the same as our community property. Our community property exceptions make us almost the same as Florida's separate property. So a lot of it, wills are different from state to state, and probate's different from state to state. But you want that stuff written in the will because, for example, in Texas, if you don't have a will, you're still going to have to go through probate, especially if you have any real property, any bank accounts, you're going to have to go through it one way or the other. And if you have to go through it just through a declaration by saying, and the declaration will work in the sense that you say, these are my only children, or after you pass, they say, these are their only children. The 4 children get to divide it 1/4, 1/4, right? But you also have to have an attorney ad litem. There's a lot of additional fees and costs at the other side of probate if you do not have a will in place. The will in place will prevent from having to jump through a bunch of hoops and for your family to get access to your real property or get access to your bank accounts.
Aging is such a sensitive subject, and a lot of people probably kick this can down the road. They didn't want to think about it. But you mentioned a lot of the dangers that happen if you don't have your ducks in a row. So when is it too early? When's the right time to start planning and getting all the ducks in a row?
I mean, honestly, I don't think it's really ever too early for no other reason because it's not just about, in my mind, it's not just about what happens after you pass. It's about what happens when you're alive. And that's why, a lot of times when you go to write the will, that will initiate the power of his attorney, the medical power of attorney, the living will, the HIPAA release. And nobody expects to die at 19, but it happens, and nobody expects to become incapacitated at 25. But it happens. And if you have any assets at all, that alone should, any assets at all in your name, any type of money, any type of retirement accounts, you need to start thinking about doing that end of life planning and doing some of these things. It doesn't maybe have to be as in depth, but it's really, really important because if if something were to happen to you, we don't know what your wishes are, and without knowing what your wishes are, it can cost your family a ton of money, it can cost your friends a ton of money, or you basically just get left to the state to deal with if you're sitting in a hospital, and which a lot of people are. You will be surprised. I think we are getting to a generation where there is no family. A lot of people don't have kids, or a lot of people have only 1 kid or 2 kids, and what happens is I am seeing more and more where the parents are outliving the children. And so at the end of the day, there's not, it's not like there's a whole bunch of family around. Sometimes it's just the one person, and I have so many cases like that.
Jeannie, what inspired you to focus on estate planning and elder law? How did you get started in this field?
How I got started in this field was I used to be a corporate litigator. So it's kind of a long journey. And I was a corporate litigator primarily up until 2 years ago. I've always kind of wanted to do estate planning, and I have an MBA. And so part of corporate planning in my mind is estate planning, because especially for small businesses, they go hand in hand. I For me, it's like putting together a puzzle, helping, and every person is different. Some people will just do the same thing for every person, but it's real important, I think, that you talk to your client, you get to know your client. And I saw a real need for really, as people grow older, and even as people are in their younger ages with businesses, how we put it all together and finding kind of interesting ways to handle solutions, from having no family to having a ton of family and trying to balance all the ducks in the row, or having family businesses, or there's a lot of pieces to everything. It's not really a simple black and white thing. You have to be willing to kind of bend and mold which each person's needs. And so I use my MBA, my master's in business, my background in business, my background, just how I come from a big family. I'm the baby of five. I've gone through a lot with my own grandparents. They've now passed away. My own mother's passed. I have 4 children. I have 5 siblings who are, and 15 nieces and nephews. So, I see my own family dynamics and stuff and how we can prepare for those prior to someone's death. And I think it's real important you prepare for it prior to the death.
For folks that are tuning in and are in Texas who you can help and they don't know where to start, how can they, find you, connect with you, and learn more?
So it's really simple. My webpage is Urbani Law, Urbanilaw. I have offices in Galveston and in Houston, and there is my phone number is out there. You can also reach me. My business cell is 409-256-1699, and my office is 409-763-2454, extension number 11.
Jeannie, this has been terrific. I appreciate you taking the time and sharing with my audience today, and I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for your time.
Jeannie Urbani with urbanilaw.com. This segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals publish to inform their consumers, to grow their practices, and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for joining me.